I'd like to call this meeting to order. And at this time, I want to take a moment of reflection. Thank you. And welcome to, I think, our second meeting of Strengthening Our Community. Nice to see you out. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? And again, you can declare anytime through the meeting. Just let us know. Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with the legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on September 17th, 2024 by contacting the deputy clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. We have a presentation and Angela Forder is going to give us a whole bunch of information, I hope.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair. And through you, I'd like to take a moment first just to thank the committee and yourself, Mr. Chair, and staff as well for the opportunity to speak about this initiative. Bob, do I have a clicky? Or Bill, do I have a clicky?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. Awesome. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the Main Street Meaford Initiative, which is a new board that's just recently formed. Thank you. Oh gosh, it's got so many buttons. How do I turn it now? How do I turn the presentation on? Okay, thanks, Alex. Wonderful, I appreciate the help. So yes, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Main Street Board, which many of you are familiar with. So this was an initiative of council about a year and a half-ish ago, and the idea was to dissolve the BIA, which was a board that was working downtown to do things like economic development and beautification and things like that, but was limited to a very specific area and to what they could do. And so the idea around the Main Street Meaford organization is that we have a much greater reach, much more flexibility, and we can do all kinds of different things that the BIA unfortunately wasn't able to do. So the board is just in the final stages of development. We're just finishing up the nonprofit status, getting the bank accounts and the insurance and all those little checks and balances when you're setting up a nonprofit organization. So that's where we're at right now. So I'd like to start off by giving you a little bit of information about the board, and then I want to talk specifically about the Market Square project. So this is just a little bit of information about who we are. So it's a board of 7. Currently, we have 6. We are looking for a new secretary. So if you know anyone that might be interested in volunteering, we'd love to hear from them. And below that, we have, within that, we have 5 subcommittees focusing on different areas. So I'll just skip ahead here. So this is our board, and I'd like to just introduce you to us. Most of you will know many of the names up there. So we have Jason Harrison, and he's the president of the board. His family owns Straw Hat Renovations, so you've probably seen them out on Highway 26. They're building Johnny B's, they're building the new CarQuest, and very notably, they are doing the reconstruction of the Station 87 Fire Hall restaurant project, which is really exciting, hopefully be opening soon. He's very well connected in the business community, very well networked. And they have Blake Totzik, and Blake's family, his family owns a number of the buildings downtown in the heritage area and the downtown retail area, and actually owns the fire hall as well, which is going to be opening soon. Ron Lampman, many of you know Ron from the Pickleball Club. Yes. What many of you don't know is that Ron has had a very successful career in finance. He's worked for the municipality of Fort Erie for a number of years, and he also worked for the Peace Bridge. And We are very thankful to have him as the treasurer for our organization. Jennifer Lyons, so some of you may know her from some of the art installations that she's done in Meaford Library, for example. She's very successful in communications, and she also has a lot of background in nonprofit work. So she brings a lot of great stuff to the board for us. Grace Morin, who is, everyone knows Grace. Grace knows Little Wren, owns Little Wren Hair Studio downtown, and she's very well networked with the local business community, especially the downtown business community. And she's also founder of the Meaford Wave, and they do things like the Summer Fest and a number of events downtown. So Grace is really excited and eager to be a part of growing the downtown core. And then myself as well. My family business is Canadian Pet Connection. My background specializes in small business development as well as digital marketing. So that's really the piece that I bring to this board. And I'm also on a number of different boards as well. And I'm the interim secretary at the moment. So again, if anyone knows, if anyone who wants to volunteer, I've got enough on my plate there. So I'd be happy to pass that off. So because the board is new, we do have a very, very large list of projects that we want to take on. And primarily our focus is economic development in the downtown core, revitalization of the downtown core, making the downtown core more attractive to entrepreneurs, to businesses, to tourists, to shoppers, and to residents that want to come and spend some time down there. So because we are new and we're getting into the holiday season, I hate to say that so early, we have 3 projects that we wanted to start off focusing on just for this year. So number 1, the Sykes Street alleyway, and that's the alleyway that's between the Cook's Cupboard and Personally Yours, and it's currently got some community murals in there. And so that picture on the left is a little bit of an idea of what we are hoping to do with that space. So a boardwalk, some Edison lights, make it a very welcoming place to go and take a stroll down. And we will have focus on local artists there, information about the town, wayfinding, a little bit of propaganda about what Main Street is doing, that kind of stuff there. So we want to make that a very welcoming space rather than just a dark alleyway as part of, and that's sort of a quick, easy win as part of revitalizing the downtown and making it more appealing. Next one is downtown wayfinding. And so anybody who went to the Summerfest may have noticed blue sandwich boards that had been placed. There was one at the harbor, one at the Nelson Street parking lot, and then one at the Market Square parking lot. And they had maps. For anyone who maybe didn't have a cell phone on them, they had maps of this is how to walk to the harbor, here's how long it takes, here's how to get to this parking lot, here's how long it takes, those types of things. And they also had a QR code that would take you to that exact location on Google so that you could follow that if you wanted to walk around downtown. And they found that about 600 people actually use those QR codes throughout the Summerfest. Just something that we kind of put up to see, is there something that we might want to endeavor to do more work with? And we determined that yes, we do. So we're going to be looking a little bit more at like parking signs, signs for tourists, things like that. How can we use signage and wayfinding to make the downtown area easier for those who are not familiar with Meaford to navigate? So that's a project that we're working on. And then that gets us to the Market Square redevelopment, which is kind of our gem right now. So for those of you who aren't aware, the Market Square, the area where between it's the Rice's parking lot right now. That's what it's also often called, known as. Once a year, it's also the Rotary Fish Fry. Or do you still do the fish fry there? Or is it the harbor now? Ah, okay. So it is a busy little space, but unfortunately being right in our beautiful downtown, it is largely a parking lot. And we'd love to do more to make it not just a parking lot. And that is actually a strategic priority of this current term of council as well. And it falls under the auspice of this advisory committee. So it's a really great fit. So the idea there is to turn it into a multi-use green space, park space, community space, not to eliminate all the parking. And a lot of people are worried, oh, when you do this, you're going to take out all the parking. Well, we can't take out all of the parking. Nobody can take out all of the parking. And nobody wants to take out all of the parking. So keep that in mind, because that is something that comes up often. There's no intention to take out all of the parking. So the reason and the way that the Main Streets organization wants to be involved is quite interesting. So Typically with master plan development, parks, green spaces, things like that, historically within the municipality, that process has largely begun with consultation, hiring consultants. They come in, they meet with shareholders, they have surveying, they have public open houses, and then they report back to council with all of the information that they've gained and say, okay, this is what we recommend you do. And then the master plan continues to be developed from there. And Main Streets Meaford sees an opportunity to really take that to the next level, go a lot deeper with community engagement, with meetings with stakeholders, all those types of things that we can do to come up with a really comprehensive plan. So A, it wouldn't be costing taxpayers the consultancy fee. And B, we'd be able to talk to a lot of our networks that consultants coming from the outside maybe necessarily don't know, to talk to those people. So organizations, residents, tourists, business, all those types of people through a series of surveying and open houses and meetings and presentations. And we really do feel that this could be a much more comprehensive process for gathering the information needed initially to get to the development of that master plan for that space. So our next steps are kind of to speak with a number of the different advisory committees and say, hey, here's who we are, here's what we plan to do, here's how we plan to do it. And to get feedback, really. We're kind of at the initial stages of this. So we're coming up with a comprehensive strategy of how we're going to be able to do this effectively and efficiently. But the first step, of course, is talking to people and getting their feedback on how they would see this process going as well. So just to kind of summarize that, our why on why we want to do this. So we aim to redesign the consultation process leading to the master plan creation and the execution. We feel we can conduct more comprehensive data collection from the local community, collaboration with a diverse network of designers, developers, climate experts, business owners, artists, community groups, tourists, residents, and much more. We can reduce costs associated with consulting by eliminating the intermediaries, and we can also ensure that the community spaces reflect the unique character and identity of Meaford. And we're very excited to have the potential opportunity to work with the municipality on this project, as well as all other interested organizations. I'm sure there's going to be many with this project. Questions?
Yes, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great, thanks, Angela. That's excellent. Couple of questions. So as a comment, as a board member on Christmas on the Bay, yeah, that space can totally be utilized for something more than just parking, and it works extremely well. This is gonna be our third year in. It's worked incredibly well so far. So I guess one question is, so I've just two, if you don't mind. The one is, so when you're going to do the surveys and things like that, has that already kind of started, or this is a process you're going to undertake?
Yeah, so we haven't started actually doing any of that surveying or anything like that. We are coming up with a comprehensive playbook, if you will, of all the areas we need to hit and how we're going to hit them, what the timeline is going to look like. It's going to be very strategic. The first step is to just kind of talk to the advisory committees, present, say, hey, here's what we want to do. Do you find this interesting? Do you have feedback about that kind of thing? But we haven't gone any further than today's actually our first presentation. So
Great. And I'm glad you said that, because it's interesting, because through growing our economy, one of the things that we've put in motion there is two of our members are already kind of going through also a public data gathering process and about visioning. What they really feel Meaford before we go to council and say we need to update our economic development strategic plan, which is due this year. We thought it would also be wise then to get some community engagement to say, what does the public feel about that? So I would think, yes, this presentation to growing our economy would be very valuable. But also I think in terms of dealing directly with Reed and Evelyn, and even maybe in advance of that, because they're already putting together kind of a visioning process and a community engagement to do that. So again, working in tandem on that would probably be really opportunistic, because that visioning should be definitely part of the market square redevelopment as a strategic initiative of council should be definitely part of that whole bailiwick.
Certainly, and I'm really glad that you brought that up. We do have intention to meet with any of the advisory committees that would pertain to this project, certainly, and we want to get as many of those committees involved
Yep.
and be very transparent about everything that's happening and get involvement from those committees and those members as much as we can. This will be hopefully a broad task force with all of the different, there's a lot of different organizations and stakeholders and groups and community groups and things. And we'd like to have as many of those as involved as possible to really make this a successful endeavor.
Great, because yeah, that was my next question is obviously we know there is now also downtown Meaford, and then we've still got Chamber of Commerce. So now you've got three bodies, and I mean, that's a wealth. We are so lucky because in the past it was, one trying to focus. So yeah, I'm presuming that Main Streets is going to figure out a way to kind of channel with each of these organizations, because they each have their own group reaching, so that helps each one of them to silo and reach some people that maybe you might not alone. So yeah, that would be excellent to try and figure out how that's all going to kind of work together to help strengthen the whole effort.
Well, certainly,
Something else in my mind.
well, and a big part of, because this is a little bit of an experimental process. Traditionally, like I said, it's always been, the consultants take on this work and they have a way of doing things and it's effective, but we feel that we could take it to the next level. So being able to work with as many organizations and groups and stakeholders and locals and individuals as we possibly can is going to just give us so much more comprehensive data and a much stronger voice towards what the community really wants from this space. So yes, the chamber, the downtown Meaford, all those guys will be all over them about this.
Yeah, and I'm not really trying to monopolize it. I'm hoping you do. I remember after COVID, we had a task force, or during COVID, and at that point there was a general meeting that was kind of called a Zoom meeting, and we invited all of the organizations, all the volunteer organizations and service clubs and all the various things to participate, because they all basically end up participating in many endeavors and events that happen. So the Market Square development would definitely be of interest to many of those. So, and I've often thought that, again, from the Strengthening Our Community banner, I just often thought that even having all those groups meeting once or twice a year, just so that, again, whenever you do anything together to strengthen, whether it's messaging out, whether it's marketing, whether it's think tanking to try and figure out better ways that everybody can utilize the same resources, that we could do so much in terms of kind of strengthening that bond. But we tend to be all these little islands that are all kind of running around and doing things, although we share a lot of the same volunteers.
I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, because that is also a future initiative of the Main Street. So that is part of our visioning process has been coming up with a big list of what's missing in Meaford, how can we do it?
Right.
And being that networking hub is a big part of what we want to become. Right now, we're kind of in the infancy stages of, hey, we have to prove ourselves. We have to do some things and show you this is who we are, this is what we're capable of. And then we are kind of in probably the beginning of next year, we're looking at starting to do those networking types of events, and not just your standard networking events, but really bringing together a roof over all of the organizations and things like that, and keeping those lines of communication open, offering resources, things like that. So yeah, that's definitely something that we have coming down the pipeline.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else have any questions for Angela? Yes, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Angela, does the committee have kind of or the board an expiry date? Or is this something that's basically going to evolve and continue to evolve until there's nothing else to do?
Great question. So through you, Mr. Chair. So it is a nonprofit organization, and the goal is to give it as much longevity as possible. So we don't have a set timeline. We hope to see, as Meaford continues to grow and develop, this become a board and subcommittees that continue to grow and get bigger and gain momentum as Meaford's downtown business economy grows. We plan to be around for a very long time. So yeah.
Good. Anybody else? I'll ask one question. Were you a member of the DIA or?
So very interesting question. we were not, because the Canadian Pet Connection was one block outside of the BIA. So we did actually, when we first moved here, moved our business here, we did try to become members of the BIA because we wanted to sit on that board and offer to help, offer to volunteer. And we were told because we were one block outside of the BIA, we couldn't do that. So that just is a little bit of an example of why the BIA was a little bit more restrictive in how they were legislated and how they kind of operated. So thankfully with Main Streets, we can change our borders whenever we want to. So really excited about that.
Well, my question is, and I'm all for Main Street. What makes it different than the DIA that will make it successful other than larger area?
Larger area, but we have a lot more capabilities in terms of things like how we fundraise, what types of initiatives we can take on. We have a lot more flexibility. And I think, yeah, I think that's really the big thing. And it's interesting that a lot of thing that some people are now learning about Main Streets is that it's not just a name and a brand that we made up. Main Streets is an organization in the US, and there's only a few Main Streets affiliated organizations in Canada. And it's just decades of trial and error, and they know what works and they know how to implement it. And it does focus very heavily on heritage as well as a tourism feature. So it really seemed to fit in really well with Meaford has going on. But the Main Streets America model is extremely productive, and it works. It's been proven to work. So it's a little bit of a different model than what the BIA was. And yes, and again, we can have a much larger membership base as a result as well, which means we can gain a lot more momentum.
Thank you. I'll just finish mine, Rob. So I know you're just starting. You don't have a secretary, I understand. So have you got a timeline on when you'd come back to council with something on the Market Square and or the alley?
Yes, we do. So as you know, as the numbers guy, there is some monies that are allocated from the budget to the Main Streets organization. And we don't get that money unless we present a budget. So we are planning to come to you very soon with a budget because there's only so much you can do without funds.
Yep.
On that note, there is a golf tournament on Friday. If anyone wants more information, we would love to have you participate. That's our first official fundraiser. But so our next step right now is to present the information that I have here today to, I always want to say EDAC, to the advisory committees that are applicable, and then to council to say, hey, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, and specifically, here's how we want to work with you on the Market Square project. So that is something that we expect to be doing in the next 1 to 2 months.
Okay, so it would be something you would present to the council that we have now. Beautiful, thank you. Yes, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one other thing I would like to bring up is that, and again, yes, attending all the things that have happened with Main Street in the past, and I understand the BIA's limitations were pretty myopic. Main Street, while still kind of within the border, I'm just hoping somehow. So the chamber is the one body that we have that actually addresses the whole municipality. So when you talk about Main Streets in many American locations, many of those municipalities are set up differently than we are. I mean, you're literally talking about, I mean, what was referenced all the time was a Chicago or whatever, you know, yeah, that's great. That's a big city, big boundaries. We get it. We're always trying to be very inclusive of the whole municipality. Now, I know Main Streets, your focus is a lot of downtown core and that geographical area. But I am hoping that within that confine, there is a way to always have it through the lens of how do we include the whole municipality? Because we do need to, we've got downtown Meaford, that is specifically downtown Meaford, that's great. The chamber does kind of address all the businesses that are in the whole community. I'm hoping that this has the bandwidth to actually kind of fill the gap between and make sure that we're inclusive to our neighbors that are in settlements that are outside of Meaford proper.
Absolutely. So, so we have 2 boundaries in our bylaws. The first boundary is sort of the downtown core, very similar to what the BIA area was. It's really focused, and that's our hotspot. That's where we're really focused, is those downtown businesses and making that, you know, the place to go, the place to visit, the place to shop. Our secondary boundary is urban Meaford, but it's a gray area boundary. It's not a set, just a specific area. And the reason being, one of the initiatives that we're working on, that we're taking on in the new year, is developing a series of seminars and workshops, as well as a mentorship program for entrepreneurs and business owners in Meaford that would hook them up with, like if they need to talk to an accountant or they need to talk to someone else and they're, a new business and they don't know what the next steps are. I need to talk about digital marketing. How do I develop a website? All those types of things that we have those resources in Meaford, and we have a large list of people who specialize in different areas who want to be part of this mentorship program and who want to volunteer their time. Maybe that's an hour a week or something to help these businesses. And those types of seminars and workshops, the networking opportunities, those things are open to all businesses within the municipality. So we want to be able to be offering those. We also want to look at things on our list, our big list of stuff that we'd like to work through over the next 5 years is wine tours, start and stop at the downtown. So they start downtown, they go out to the wineries and they come back and they stop at the local restaurants, those types of things. So we really want to make sure that we're connected with the entire Meaford business community with that hotspot focus on the downtown core as being our economic hub.
Perfect. And I'm glad you said wine because because our main industry still is ag. So, I mean, you're right. If people can take in our trails, take in our wineries or breweries, or end up hitting our farm markets that are wherever, strengthening our community. So tourism has got to be thought somewhere in that boundary as well. And that means that, yes, we have a lot to bring people into the area of Meaford, which then can funnel into the town of Meaford. So it's all very complementary. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that scope was kind of all inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Sonia.
Angela, do you have an entrepreneurial lens to the work that you're doing?
We do, yes. Yes, so we are looking at the Main Streets. It is a nonprofit organization, but we are looking at it as sort of an economic hub for the downtown core as well as the entire kind of Meaford business community. So most of the people that are on our board are entrepreneurs, and that's how we look at small business development and small business growth. The same strategies that we would use when we're working on our own businesses or giving people advice on their business, that's how we're approaching the Main Streets board as well.
And the second part of my question is around diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And is that a lens that you're focusing on as well?
It is, yes. So it's not something that we have solidified, but we are working on, what's the acronym? Is it IEDA? We are working on the one that Mary Solomon wrote.
The DEI.
Yes, there's so many acronyms floating around, but we are working on developing a policy for that, which will be available on our website as well. And I do believe that there's information within our bylaws also. Yeah.
Sure.
So with the DEI following LDA, ODA requirements, et cetera. I'm glad you brought up the entrepreneurial. Are you also looking at any kind of let's look at the educational aspect as well. Are you looking to work with the GBCS to any kind of mentoring programs or any kind of, again, engagement with students to try and get them involved in some capacity as well with all this?
So I'm actually quite glad you brought that up because in our meeting, we have a meeting tomorrow morning where we are going to be discussing development of a youth board. And we want to have, we want to kind of foster that entrepreneurial mindset and try to keep a lot of young entrepreneurs in Meaford as well. So it's a really good opportunity through the nonprofit to get them that kind of experience and get them that kind of exposure. So yes, absolutely. That is definitely something that we're working on.
Yes, Sonia.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Angela, because in the discussions that we've had around community safety and well-being in the past, one of the items that was seen as a need was to have youth space specific for youth so that they can just have a place where they can hang out, if you will, in a safe way.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Thank you. And Sonia, that's interesting because that is part of our portfolio also as well-being. And the youth is a big part of that. So very interesting, Angela. Thank you very much for bringing it forward. And good luck. It's a big undertaking you're about to take. Deputations on agenda items. We don't have any. Walter didn't want to give us a deputation. Thank you. Thank you, but thank you for coming. So approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Do I need a first and seconder to open this up? Mover and a seconder. Can we get Angela? Thank you. Is there any issues with the agenda as printed? Or if not, can we accept it into our meeting? Yes. Yeah, so is there any discussion? Is there any issues with it? No. All in favor of accepting them? Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, items for considerations. We have none on there today. Items for information. The Grand Pals program update, Meaford Public Library. Alex, are you going to give us a little history on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to put this on the agenda for this committee. Because at our last meeting, we had a little bit of a discussion about the well-being plan. Because I personally had a lot of movement and activity with the well-being plan last year. So I wanted to be sure to update this committee. And then sort of extending on to that conversation from the last meeting. I think we did have a little bit of a mention about the Grand Pals program. So I did include the library webpage regarding the program. So hopefully you all had a chance to sort of review it. And the program is full speed ahead. There's already some people signed up for it for sort of the Grand Pals position. And now the library is actually recruiting for children to join the program, because if you had read the program, you would have seen it's an intergenerational program. So I did bring some posters as well that are available to the public, and I wanted to have some available for the committee if anyone would like to take them, if you have someone or know someone that wants to join, because like I said, they are recruiting for children to join the program. And all you have to do is just go into the library, ask about it, and register there. The sessions start in October. The first meet and greet session is October 10th. All meetings will be from 3:30 to 5 o'clock at the Meaford Public Library. This is so the Grand Pals, if you had a chance to look into it, all over the province, they run this program in schools. And a couple of different areas a couple of municipalities have started running it at their libraries. So we are one of the few that are rolling this out into our library setting. Which is very cool because we'll be kind of sort of the handful of groups that are taking that on in the library. So very cool collaborative effort on behalf of, it was kind of rolled out from Legislative Services. We applied for a grant and we got the grant funding for it, the New Horizons grant. And then we sort of worked with the library and kind of passed it on. And now the library is managing the actual program. The youth coordinator, Lori, she is super qualified to run this program. She has the connections with the various groups, the school, the homeschool groups that come into the library. So it's really interesting what they kind of have sort of in mind for these sessions. And that's my little kind of plug about the Grand Pals program. Like I said, please grab a poster if you'd like. They're available to the public. And if there's any questions about the program, I can do my best to answer. But like I said, it's really in the hands of the library now. So the best thing to do would be to contact Lynn at the library or just pop in and ask about it there.
Beautiful, thank you. Is there any questions on the Grand Palace or? No, okay. We requested at the last meeting to get a report on some parks, because Parks and Rec is in our portfolio here at and because we didn't have a Parks and Rec manager, it's pretty hard to pull together a report. I understand we now have a Parks and Rec manager, and he's going to get some information for the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chair, through you. under the Grand Pals item as well, I just had put presentations from local groups. This was something that we had sort of chatted about at the last agenda meeting because I think the presentation that we had from Angela, thank you very much. It was really, really informative. And I think it would be awesome to have more presentations to this group from local groups so that we can just hear from groups. And there's just so many people that are doing such amazing things. And there's a lot to learn about what's already going on. So I think if we could have a little bit of a discussion about who the committee would like to hear from so that we can make sure that, even if we have one presentation a meeting, I think that's totally doable. I would just like to sort of hear from you all as opposed to sort of one of us picking. And then Sarah also has just a little bit of a blurb to speak about. She's been doing some research that she wants to sort of chat with the committee about. And then to Councillor Bartley's point, hopefully the next meeting will have at least a verbal report from the new parks manager. I think it'd be kind of interesting to have some statistics about how the summer season was and how it went at sort of the harbor and any other facilities. The Memorial Park obviously is a big one. So anyway, sorry, that was a lot. But to go back to the presentations from local groups, if we could hear from the committee, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, if we could sort of go with that for a little bit. And then, like I said, Sarah has a few words as well, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Is there any group that this group would like to hear from? Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm recusing myself, but I'm going to say it. So this Strengthen Our Community has culture right in its mandate. So I happen to be a member of the Meaford Culture Foundation. And I'm sure that that's an organization that would love to come and talk because what this specifically addresses is arts and culture in the community. Works with many volunteers, looks to fund and put on many local cultural events. So that's one that I'm sure would be very interested in coming in and saying a few words just to bring up to speed on what it's doing, as well as also does a great deal in funding towards Meaford Hall. So it has a definite cultural impact.
for sure. Miss Angela.
If you'd like a presentation from the Community Outreach Director of the Meaford Culture Foundation, you're looking at her.
Meaford Outreach?
It's the Community Outreach
Community.
Program of the Meaford Culture Foundation.
Okay,
So I'd love an opportunity to speak about that at a future meeting.
okay. Anybody else? Yes.
As president, through the chair, as president of the food bank, I would love to come. Well, I'm here anyway, but
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to share what we do and sort of where our initiatives are and how we're moving forward in these difficult times.
Beautiful. So,
You clearly have strong community representation on this committee already.
Hand picked.
And so I would, of course, want to put up my hand for a conversation by the Rotary House Outreach Room and all of the different services that room is now supporting for the community. The other one I would suggest is Tidbits.
tidbits.
Yes, I'm seeing the signs all over the place and I'd love to learn more about that program.
Well, that gives you a list. Are you going to approach them or should we approach?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think if we're all here and we're all okay with that, I think it would be great if both of you, if each of you wanted to do exactly what Angela did today. If you had a presentation you wanted to give me, the next meeting's November 20th. So the agenda would go out the week before November 20th. And then the week before that, we'd have our review. So if you could prepare that and send it to me early November, I would have no problem with putting a presentation from each of you on the agenda. That's 2 presentations. And then if there's any other groups that you'd like to hear from, one of us can reach out to arrange a presentation in the future as well. I don't know if you want to keep having that discussion now and keep collecting, groups that would interest you, or if we're just going to kind of leave it there for now and pick it up maybe next meeting. But I think it would be good to have a little bit of a roster, especially for a group like this, for a committee like this.
For sure. And we've just had 5 come forward. So when you say you only have 2 of them, I was confused. So.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I thought I meant the 2 that were in the room. Was there another one that I missed? Meaford Cultural.
Rob with
Foundation as well.
cultural, he could set
Okay.
that up, Angela
Food bank.
with
Rotary
community
Club.
outreach, Natalie with food bank, Sonia with Rotary, and then Tidbit. So I don't want to do 5 in a meeting. Would we do 1 or 2 a meeting? What would you suggest?
Well, so the community outreach is for the Culture Foundation. So Rob and I could do a joint presentation on that. I think would be really great. 2 is probably a good number.
Mhm. Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, I have, so we could do Meaford Cultural Foundation, Meaford Food Bank at the next meeting. And then Rotary House, the meeting after. And then Tidbits, I thought was Meaford Downtown. Is
It
there
is.
someone here from Meaford Downtown? Okay.
One of you.
So why don't we do those 3 at the next meeting? Because I think we would have enough time for 3.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Everybody's good with that?
It would.
That'd be up to you, 100% up to you. That's too bad.
Oh, okay. You could also, if
Okay.
there was someone you wanted to send as well, but we could also do it the following one, that's fine.
So would our next meeting be in Scotland? No, that sounds great. And Sarah, you had a few words of wisdom?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not quite sure on the wisdom part, but I sure as heck will give some feedback to, and I think it's very timely in what we're talking about today after Angela's excellent presentation. And some of the questions that came with that around youth. We also touched on around, you know, the aging population as well. So something I'm looking at and I am going to be participating in is the county's age-friendly plan that they are talking about. For me, it's very in its infancy. I have to do more research on it. But what its vision is that Grey County and its communities will create inclusive opportunities for people of all ages to actively participate in all stages of life and to thrive physically, economically, with dignity and independence. And it was extremely fitting that we were having this meeting today, that I've started into this because yesterday I had an excellent meeting with our 55 plus friendship group. And we touched on a lot of where we can see some gaps in the relationships between the community and the youth, all the way up to, like I said, the aging workforce. And I think that doing a little more research on this, that I can bring forward more detail around what that looks like. It ties into our well-being plan, but I think we can do much better by looking at this age-friendly community action plan and looking to see if it's something we can become in conjunction with Grey County. So it's not just being looked at from the county level, but from our municipality as well. Like I said, I had a great meeting yesterday, and it's only one of the beginning of having communication with a number of community programs. And I want to look more at this age friendly and then be able to bring a presentation to you folks so that you can understand a little bit better as to what that looks like and what we can do moving forward to be inclusive of all ages, right? You know, touching on the grand pals as well, right? You've got such a wide range there. And I think we can do that for everybody. So I want to dig into this a little bit more and then be able to present to all of you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Rob.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm presuming you were jumping to committee inquiries, but this is kind of, you alluded earlier, and I just Parks and Rec actually used to have its own committee. And then when council decided to go with 4 pillars, it kind of got funneled under this. And I'm just wondering how this is going to be kind of touched on moving forward, how we're going to, because we are very naturally touching on a lot of the cultural aspects that are happening by osmosis of our own partnerships with various groups that are already happening within the community anyway. I just don't want to lose sight of Parks and Recs because it always has been such a very, very important component of the community and what it offers in general, and how we are going to manage that moving forward. For example, Angela, when you made your presentation earlier, Red Ragbers Park, McCarroll Park, kind of fall within the downtown realm. So are they going to be also under the mandate of Main Streets? Is that organization kind of looking at that as part and parcel in concert with the municipality of, the directionality of it? How are we going to be addressing the needs of Parks and Rec moving forward through this body and in general, or when these agendas are being constructed? What from staff is going to come to us about Parks and Rec that need to be addressed on an ongoing basis? I really don't want to lose sight of the importance of these particular bodies that are so paramount in our community, from a recreational and even a tourism bias, that we don't lose sight of what we're going to do with that. And I just don't know if staff has kind of thought about that from a directional purpose, or how we're going to deal with that.
Sarah, you were first.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Yurg, I agree with you completely. I don't want to lose sight on that either. And I can say that that's definitely one of the things that is near and dear to many hearts that sit around this table. I think it's finding a new collaboration with these other committees, becoming more involved. And that's exactly what you were saying, Angela, getting us together, ripping the silos off and saying, how can we work together to make things better for the community? And Parks and Rec are one of those key ones. And I think that, when we have an opportunity to get a presentation from our Parks and Rec, our new Parks and Rec manager, it'll help define a little bit maybe where we can head and how we can collaborate together, and making sure that we keep it on the agenda, that it's always something that has a moment of conversation to be held around it. That's what I see is we just have to keep talking about that piece and then following through with motions and actions to do better with what we have and working together collaboratively.
Then if I may piggyback on that, then, so when we talk about the various groups that really should be coming in here, and again, I'm recusing myself all over the place, but what the heck? The pickleball club would love to come in and have a conversation then, because what they're trying to do is find space in the municipality to actually build their own facility. Space is at a paramount, is a problem, obviously, to come up with for anybody. But again, that is a particular age group with 300 members, skews to our senior community much more so than its younger. So under the being of bearing of health and wellness, that group really does cater to that sector. And somehow through the municipal cooperation, they're going to be seeking some way of trying to come up with a facility for that. So I'm sure that they would love to make a presentation to this body to say, what can be done to move forward to kind of look in that direction.
Yes, Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. So, Councillor Urick, thank you for bringing up the point about parks being an integral part of our community and how do we not lose sight of that through this advisory committee, but just in general as a community. I was on the previously on the Parks Advisory Committee. Mr. Bartley, you were on that committee as well. And a number of people who were volunteers for that committee did not reapply for this advisory committee. And the frustration was it felt a little bit as though a master plan was coming to us. Here's the information. Make a little bit of decisions. We can give something to council, but you can't go out and do task force. You can't go out and talk to the community. You can't. So it felt very restrictive. And we've since learned that as long as you don't have quorum, we can develop task force within advisory committees. So I would really love to see, again, staff really leaning on the strength of our volunteers and saying, hey, we have this master plan coming up. Here are some points about it. does anybody want to create a task force? As long as, of course, we don't have quorum. Does anybody want to create a task force, or is there any further surveying or anything to get information that this committee would like to have in order to make a better recommendation to council? And I'd really love to be able to be a part of, you know, sort of making this advisory committee more heavily involved in those types of processes.
Thank you, Angela. And like you said, the two of us were on that previous committee. And I think that's why the two of us are sitting here today. That's why I brought up the last meeting, if we could have a report on one park and then the next meeting on another park. And I was picking the splash pad because I think that's where our money is going next, I hope. Having said that, it all falls in to well-being parks, and I wanted to bring forward one park at a time and see where we want to go. And coming up next in committee inquiries, what park do you want to talk about? To me, it's McCarroll Park right now. And we have to give staff enough time to come up with something because they didn't have the staff at the time. So, Rob, 100% guaranteed, it will not be lost in this committee. And working with other committees on the same thing, that's why the reason, in my mind, why we struck these committees is to get the community at large involved. And like I said at the start of today, 5 members on each community, there's 45 people that are now going to try to give some sort of help running this municipality. So open up to community committee inquiries. Is there anything you want to bring forward at the next meeting other than a couple presentations? Yes, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Him again. So two more then to bring up, because again, so going the direction of Parks and Rec, the next logical, and I'm just glad you said it because the health and wellness, 2 other bodies that we should actually be having in come in here to speak. One would be the hospital board and one be somebody from the long-term care center. These are 2 vital components of our community. And when it comes to health and wellness and in general, we should be hearing from them for their position and obviously their needs and how we can assist them, because heaven forbid how many times we had to fight to keep the hospital as it was. So how can we work to help them in whatever capacity we can as well?
Thank you. Yes, Sonia.
If I may also add, Mr. Chair, community safety and well-being was based on the 2019 Ontario Policing Act. And when we developed our community safety and well-being plan, we did a very broad community assessment. And so I'm wondering about how we continue to connect with that data, whether or not we're moving, how are we doing relative to community policing?
How would we pull from that on community policing? Would we have a report from the OPP, or what would you suggest, Sonia, to go forward with that?
I think it's just a conversation about next steps. When do we go back to our community and have a conversation about their understanding of community safety and well-being?
Okay, okay.
As well as perhaps some statistics along the way. Excuse me, my background is risk management, and that's where my
Yeah.
brain goes.
I don't know if it correlates with this, but in 2019, we had a different contract with the OPP. Right now, that contract is null and void, and everybody in Ontario is under the same contract now, I believe. So it is a little different. But yes, we could draw some information from that. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 2 points I'd like to make. One is I'd really love to see an updated report on the Memorial Park Master Plan. And that was something that the previous Parks Advisory Committee was fairly heavily involved in. And to my understanding, that master plan was completed and was being put into place, but some aspects of it have not yet been rolled out. So I'd really like to get an update on where we're at with that. And the second is when we think of, you know, when we're talking about parks, we're talking about community, we're talking about community centers and all these things. We're thinking a lot about Meaford proper, but I'd really love to hear from the Bognor Community Center Board, for example, you know, representatives from Annan and Leith and organizations out there about community well-being, mental health, things in our agricultural communities as well, because they are a very important part of this committee as well.
Rob,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, to that end, it's interesting because Sweetwater Festival was just on the weekend and it was phenomenal. So, but what they do greatly is the Leith Church. So you're right, between the Bognor Community Center and the Leith Church, just having those two bodies alone, again, being representative of the rural community that's within our boundaries, it ends up doing amazing jobs. Whether it's in the Fall Fair, or I mean, the Canada Day celebrations of Bognor. So again, we have to figure out ways to be inclusive of them because they do contribute greatly to the community. I can bring up a second point. What you just said, Sonia, about the policing was really interesting because again, we've heard of council lately that we've seemed to have had, at least perception is there's been a spate of concerns about theft and safety and various things that have come to us many, many times. And Mr. Bartley had said that, yes, it is a concern about the existing contract with the OPP. One of the things that has been discussed is whether or not we need to introduce, and this is something as an advisory committee, some kind of a community watch program. So we heard recently at the last council meeting that Crime Stoppers is very likely going to be going under. Their funding is, they're desperately trying to source funding. They're not having a lot of luck. And they're going to be sorely missed because they do serve a valuable function in the community, and they do serve as that intermediary between the police. We know the OPP can only do so much in our community. We are a satellite in their whole coverage area, and they can only do so much. A community watch system is something we're doing in our own backyard to try and help our own citizenry. So whether or not that's something that, and again, when you talk about a potential presentation from the OPP or somebody else, whether they could make recommendations about how we could do a community watch program that is to implement our own processes to be more diligent or more aware or more helpful with our own community might be worth exploring as well.
yes, sir.
I just thought I'd jump in here with your question around the OPP. Again, as I say that I'm getting my feet wet, I really am getting my feet wet. And OPP is one of the things that is on my agenda as well, and how we can become a better partner with the OPP. And I agree with you. The Community Watch is an amazing program. Again, getting my feet wet with OPP, it's been slight conversation, but we have to get down to nitty gritty and understand what we're looking for and outline a bit to be able to communicate that to the OPP. Like you said before, when you have all the voices, we are much stronger together with that voice than the one-ofs. And I think the OPP have wanted to have more of a relationship with the municipalities, but it just hasn't, one hasn't reached out to the other and vice versa. And so now we're identifying that gap and identifying that, you know, community well-being and safety watch is extremely important, much to what you're saying around the uptick in you know, the local crime. That's all part of the conversation. And I would like to have OPP come and have a conversation here, provide a presentation on what they offer, what that looks like, what are their long-term plans, and how we can help with all of that. So I just wanted to note that it is something that's in my wheelhouse and that is very fitting to be able to work in to this committee.
Thank you. Is there any other committee inquiries? There's a pile on the table right now. Looks like we're going to have a good agenda for the next time. If there is no more committee inquiries, I'm going to jump to communications. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to deputyclerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. The cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and commitments. Date of the next meeting will be November 20th. And if there's nothing else, I would ask for adjournment. Do I need a first and second for adjourn? I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.